Sometimes all it takes is an invitation to change a life. Alexis Brown accepted an invitation to a regular Saturday night Bible study. Little did she know that this was the night her mental health would be restored.
My name is Alexis Brown, and this is my story. A couple weeks ago, I got invited to a Bible study by a couple of girls from school, and I decided, yeah, let's go. And before this Bible study, I struggled really heavily with depression, self-hatred, and the inability to feel love, feeling like I had to earn it. And with this, I would cry myself to sleep every night, and a lot of my close family and friends would tell me that I overwhelmed them with love because it was just overpowering, because I was trying to make them feel what I couldn't. At this Bible study, we sat down and we were talking about how everybody struggles with things on the inside, whether they express it or not. And I sat down and I thought I was struggling with something else, that I didn't really want to tell anybody that I struggled with depression and that I hated who I was and what I was doing. And so I just sat down, and one of the leaders of this Bible study came over to me and said, hey, can I pray for you? I know there's something going on in your life that you're not sharing. Can I just pray for you to come to terms with that on your own before you bring it to somebody else? And I said, of course. Everybody can use prayer. And I sat down and she started praying for me, just about my heart. And all of a sudden she said, I know what it is. And started praying for depression to leave my body, for me not to hate who I was and what I was going through, and to open my heart to love and know that it's a gift from God and not something that you can earn. And in that moment, I just felt an overpowering blanket around me where I felt safe and loved, and it was almost overwhelming. I began to weep and I could not stand, and I sat on the floor and she continued to pray for me. And since that day, my life has been amazing. I haven't cried myself to sleep since. I've barely cried since then, which is not normal for me. And I feel loved, and for a week after that, anytime that somebody would say that they loved me or would do an act that would show that they cared and loved about me, I would just start crying because it was overwhelming and I'd never felt that before. And it's something that has totally changed my perspective and made me understand that I really was struggling, but prayer and God are the only people who can really feel that. And being vulnerable is the place that you're going to be strongest, and where your faith's going to blossom and God's really going to cut in and just heal you from whatever you're struggling with.
Well, today I am so excited to interview one of our very own, Alexis Brown. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, so you are a part of our TV show team. Tell us what you do here.
Yes, I actually coordinate.
You coordinate all the guests. Mm-hmm. She is the brains of the operation, so I'm so glad to have you on set. We were just talking on set one day, and you told me your story, and I'm like, oh my goodness, we have to have you on the show.
Yes.
Now, Alexis, you are a part of a different church, but you somehow ended up at Dream City for a season. Tell us a bit about that.
So my mentor actually is the academic advisor for Dream City College, and her husband's the director. And one day they took me to lunch and sort of proposed the idea of going to college here while I was in the middle of searching for what I wanted to do. And it sort of just fell right into my lap, and I just took that and ran with it.
It's so amazing. You never know what God's plan is. You go into one place and he brings you to another place for a season, and he really impacted your life over the last couple of weeks. Tell us what happened there.
A couple weeks ago, a couple of my girlfriends invited me to go to a Bible study, and I said, yeah, of course, let's go. And in this Bible study, we started talking about internal battles and what that looked like for each of us individually. And in this night, I started to realize that there were a lot of things that I was battling internally, such as depression, self-hatred, and just feeling unworthy of love, which was something I didn't know that I struggled with and never had expressed to people before. And in this Bible study, I did not say anything about it to anybody, and while praying, you actually just got a word of spirit that said, hey, this is what Alexis is struggling with, and was able to sit down and pray about it. And that actually, since that night, has been released from me, and now I'm very free, and it's just been an awesome walk.
Mental illness is something that's plaguing this generation. Anxiety, depression. My husband and I lead the youth group, and the amount of kids that come to the altar and say they're dealing with suicidal thoughts. And these are people who are in the church, but they're holding things in for so long. You've held these battles in your mind for so long. Tell us about the freedom you experienced when you opened up and you shared about what you're going through.
Yeah, so before I cried myself to sleep every night, there were a couple of times that I did struggle with suicidal thoughts. And as I sat down and was able to open up about it and talk to people about it, my heart was just like the weight was released. And people, like, it was hard for me to trust people and say, this is what I struggle with. But since then, I have not cried myself to sleep. I have people that I can call and say, this is something that I'm feeling. This is where I'm struggling. Can you please walk me through it? And they do. I believe the church is made for that, to walk with you through hard times, even if it seems like you're alone.
Absolutely. What would you say to people who don't attend church and they're walking through these mental battles and doctors are telling them one thing, but obviously we know that there is another solution? What would you say to people who don't have that community and that connection and a place to be vulnerable?
I would say find it. I think that the church was probably the best place for me to express it. There'd been times that I'd given opportunities and said, hey, like, this is something I'm struggling with outside of the church, and it always was just shut and said, well, everybody deals with that, so you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I think that once you sit down and you open up about that, like, God can take care of a lot more than any person can. And I think the church wants you to succeed, and they want to pray for you, and they want you to be the best person you can be. And having that community almost anywhere is really important, just for your mental health in and outside of mental illness.
Have you been able to use this experience now to counsel other girls? Have you been able to use it?
Yes, actually. I have a lot of friends that I didn't know struggled with this until I was able to, one, have a difference in my own life that people were able to notice. Like, my family and my friends were able to see that there had been a change in me. And so to sit down and talk to other girls on mission trips or other things that I've helped with, sit down and be like, hey, like, it's okay to struggle. Like, you're not alone. I understand how you feel. And that just opens other people up to being able to be vulnerable, which is then where they can get healing.
That's so true. Thank you, Alexis, so much for being vulnerable and sharing your story. It's not easy to get up here and share that you've been through mental battles. I've been through my own series of mental battles, but it was the church, it was the community, it was the Bible studies where women wrapped their arms around me and lifted me up through those times that really got me through it. And it's so important for people to find a community. And I believe Dream City College and our women's ministry has been that for you.
Yes.
Well, if you are dealing with mental battles, internal struggles that you haven't shared with anybody, you need a community. You need someone to wrap their arms around you, hear what you're going through, and pray for you. There is a whole other solution that the world cannot offer you that the church and God can bring you. Come to Dream City Church. Check out all the groups that you can be a part of and find a community of your own.